Hi, everyone, and welcome to Lure Legends, a video cast where my awesome co-host, epic fantasy author Richard H. Stevens, and I speak with people from all walks of the publishing industry. Lurking from Legends is a live interactive broadcast, and we encourage viewers to chime in with questions for our guests or simply make comments on what you hear in the show. So tonight, our guest is going to be thriller author Kristina Rienzi, but it seems she's running a little bit late. So we're trying to get in touch with her. And in the meantime, we're just going to chat, and have a nice time here, just the two of us, until she shows up. So anyway, how are you doing, Richard?
I'm doing very well. And you know what? I think it's kind of mood setting that she's not here yet because she's a writer. She's keeping us in suspense, right? So maybe she's doing this by design. Yeah. No, I'm doing very well.
Yeah.
And congratulations to you. You just released another book today.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah. I just released The Artist, which is available everywhere on ebook. And this one takes place post-Civil War America. And it has a lot of suspense. The reviews so far are very good, saying that, it's unpredictable and there are twists and turns and all the good stuff that I always hope with my works. I always try to make them as unpredictable as possible. So, I'm really happy hearing that, of course, and I'm going to see, I'm sure, more reviews roll in as people get the chance to read it. And so, yeah, that was really exciting. And it's like one of those things, like all day you're kind of on this like release high and you're just going a million miles a minute,
Oh, no, it never gets old, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So I don't think I've ever discussed this with you before. Are you wide or are you exclusive?
I am wide. All of my books are wide except for one. And that one is the one I released before this in December, The Wrong House. That one is Kindle Unlimited. I was kind of testing the waters and just seeing what it was like. And it is pretty interesting. It went over well. So, so far it's actually outdone this one in pre-orders. So maybe I will stick with, the shorts for the short stories, putting them in Kindle Unlimited. I haven't decided yet. Maybe the next one I'll try it again and see if it's the same case. But I feel like we're always kind of experimenting as indie authors.
Sure,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I hear different, mixed reviews depending on who you talk to.
Yeah,
and
definitely. I read all kinds of stuff. Okay, I read totally opposite opinions, from like different people.
Yeah.
And one of the things I read recently, I wish I could remember the woman's name. I want to say Alana Johnson, but I could be wrong on that. And she was saying something about one of the things to consider when deciding whether you're going to do Kindle Unlimited is like, what was it? That people only have so much money and they are looking to spend it on their favorite authors. And so a lot of times you might miss out on people who don't know you yet and they may not be willing to spend money on you, but they are willing to download from Kindle Unlimited or something. Right. And I can't remember her exact phrasing, but it was basically something like that. And when you hear like there are reasonable arguments on both sides, and I thought that was an interesting one.
What's interesting to me is I hear all the time that Kindle Unlimited is better if you have a long series, you have long books, because you're getting page reads. You get paid by the page. So, if you're releasing short stories, you're not getting much of a page read through. So you're not making much money that way, as opposed to me releasing a 600-page fantasy book. But I've done okay. Kindle Unlimited. I like it. It's kind of goes up and down. I don't get the staggering numbers that I see that other people post. But I pulled all my books out of Kindle Unlimited now. And I'm going wide. I'm planning to have a launch date wide of June 13th or June 12th. That is my go date for going wide. So hopefully I'll have everything up loaded into Kobo and Nook and Google and Apple and all that stuff. I thought about using a provider like Derafta Digital, but then you pay a 10% a service fee, obviously, because they're for you. So I think I'm going to try and do them all the platforms myself to get the extra payout. So I'd be maybe picking your brain offline just to see what you did and what platforms you're in.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Anytime. For sure. I totally agree with what you're saying. I think it's interesting that you're coming out of Kindle Unlimited to try wide. That's exactly what the author, Josh DeLioncourt did that we just recently
Right.
spoke to.
That's right.
Yeah. He was saying the same thing. And I thought it was pretty interesting. I assume, just like you were saying with fantasy, it would make the most sense to be in Kindle Unlimited. But then again, like, myself, I've had readers who say, but can I buy it anywhere other than Amazon? Because I don't really buy from Amazon, or I prefer not to, or whatever. And it's always like that. What do I do? What's the best?
Mm-hmm.
But the reason I put mine in Kindle, I totally understand what you're saying about the page reads with fantasy, and it makes so much sense. And my idea was more just for me to just introduce people to me, and hopefully,
Right.
people who don't want to pay, specifically that 99 cents for an unknown author to them. I was just hoping to maybe draw them in, and then they would see at the end of the book that I have these other books, and then they might want to take a chance on, buying a couple of their books. So I don't know. We'll see. I'm trying to tell. It's a little bit hard to tell, if they come from reading the Kindle Unlimited version and then buy something, it can be a little bit difficult to tell. Some more insight would be great from Amazon.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's not always transparent, but what I was getting probably between 500 to 800 to 2,000, 2,500 page reads a day. So, if you break that down to a book, and then that's maybe 6 books a day that I was selling, but you're not getting the same margin as you would by actually selling an ebook, right? So that's a little misleading. Gotcha. And then you get the read through, hopefully, but so I was doing okay, but it's certainly not sustaining enough to actually say I'm making a living at it that way. So, there's so many readers that I'm missing through going wide that I'm going to see whether I'm shooting myself in the foot one way by losing my KU readers. Because there is that argument too that if you flop back and forth, that all of a sudden people don't know where you are anymore, and they just give up on you and move on. So, I'm going to try and go into wide this year and see how that goes. And apparently it's not next week, all of a sudden you're selling books again. It takes a little while to get established. So they said, got to be patient. It's going to take months, not weeks,
right,
to a year before all of a sudden people start seeing you. And I truly believe that. I think it's like the rule of 7. They see Christie in the first, and they don't know who Christie Stratos is. They see it again, they don't think about it. But come 5th or 6th time, they see Christie Stratos' name, they say, hey, I've seen that before. I know I've heard that name somewhere. And then they look into it, and then, she writes a neat book. So then they'll buy it. So we'll see.
Exactly. How many books does that mean you're taking down and putting back up, or not taking down, but that you're taking out of Kindle Unlimited? How many
11.
is that?
11.
Wow. Yeah. It's a commitment.
4 novellas, and then 9 are full-length novels. But I just wanted to say before we keep going, if I see there's a few people online with us, then please join in the conversation right now. We're just trying to fill in time until our guest comes in. So please join us in the conversation. If you guys want to, if you're authors and you want to let us know what you do and whether you're being successful with it, or whether you're thinking about switching like I am, or if you're kind of hybrid like Christie is there. I know hybrid means you have a publisher and you're indie, but I mean hybrid between wide and exclusive. Let us know. Feel free to chime in and let us know how you're doing. And you're feel free to ask Christie questions about her new release.
Yeah, always. Yeah, definitely feel free. And by the way, we do have hey Amber, we do have a text from Kristina that she is on her way. So she'll be here soon.
Good. So Amber says, and I'll pull it up on screen here. Amber is one of my faithful Friday night watchers when I do my live reads.
She's great.
Do you recommend going wide or KU with the first book? You can answer that, Christie, because I do not want to recommend one way or the other.
Yeah, I mean, I would recommend wide, but I mean, everybody's going to recommend something different, and I could totally see why. The idea that that other person put forward of people not wanting to take a chance on a first-time author would dictate that you should go straight into Kindle Unlimited. My personal thinking is, if you're brand new, I would go wide at least at first, and then probably a couple of books in, if you're doing a series, let's say, maybe by the third book, you put the first one on Kindle Unlimited. You know, you could try it and see if people get invested, you know, and if so, then they might, you know, you might start seeing some sell through, but you could see like how it goes. If you're really not seeing much going on wide, you know, if you're like seeing almost no or no continual sales or something, you can always just do Kindle Unlimited, but you'd have all the formatting done and set. So it's like you wouldn't have a big learning curve or anything like that. So, you know, there's just so many ways of thinking that is mine. And that's my personal idea. And I don't know. What do you think, Richard?
I think if you have a series, I like that. If your first book just go wide, because it doesn't matter. Like if they're in Kindle Unlimited, they see there's only one book out, they're probably not going to touch it anyway. Especially if they see it's a series and there's nothing else offered yet, they're going to wait. But if you get the third book out, I think the third book you start tipping the scale where all of a sudden now they're interested, because now you've got something that they can read for free through Kindle Unlimited. It's not, you do get paid for it, but you don't get paid the same as you would by actually selling the ebook without Kindle Unlimited.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Especially if you've got it between $2.99 and $9.99 on Amazon, you're going to get 70% of the difference that Amazon charges. So you're going to make more money by selling an ebook than you will through Kindle Unlimited. But Kindle Unlimited is fairly popular, and there are a lot of authors that make a good living through page reads. Like I see they have 50,000, 100,000, 500,000 page reads a month. I go, holy cow! Like that's amazing. I think I've had 1 month that had 50,000, and there she is. I'm going to bring her in.
Oh my goodness, I am so sorry. This is what having a 20-year-old does to your brain. Hi, how are you guys?
How are you? Good. There you go.
I'm like, I have an 8 o'clock, and then it's like it came and went, and I'm like, oh my god. So sorry.
We just figured because you're a thriller author that you're keeping us in suspense.
I was. That was my plan. That
Very
was the
smooth.
real plan.
Well played, yeah.
Oh, very successful.
Goodness. Oh my goodness. Like, how are you guys doing? So sorry. I feel terrible. I've never done that before. I'm telling you, I have mommy brain still. I'm trying to get out of it, but
no, we've been keeping ourselves busy just talking about Kindle Unlimited and going wide. So yeah.
So true. Oh my goodness. Oh, well, I'm so glad to be here. Thank you guys so much for having me. I feel so bad. I owe you, Christy. I owe you, Richard. Oh my God.
Don't worry about it. No worries.
That's okay. Yeah. Don't worry about it. We totally understand. But why don't we just start out with you telling us about your books and yourself?
Sure. So yeah, I write new adult thriller books. I'm a new adult thriller author, and I have, oh my God, if I have to count, I feel like I have 7 books out right now. I'm working on book 8 and 9 of fiction and nonfiction. I'm also a certified professional coach. And so a lot of what I'll post online is, inspirational, motivational type stuff, primarily for anybody, but I do like working with creatives because I'm a creative. So I totally get that. And yeah, I'm a new mom, so that's kind of taken over my life, and a little chaotic and trying to use the right brain more than the left. But other than that, that's enough. I think that's a lot going on.
It is.
Of
course.
Anyway, I don't know.
Yeah, and that was so exciting too when you mentioned coaching. So, tell us a little bit more. We're going to talk about your books too, but just to start off, tell us a little bit more about the coaching stuff, because it's kind of a funny contrast if you think about it. You write this exciting thriller stuff that's really intense, and then on the other side you're so positive and you do coaching, and it's kind of ironic in a way. So tell us a little bit more about that.
Sure. You know what? It's funny. I really feel like they're a lot more alike than you think. Because if you think about it, story is life. We all know that as writers, right? Story is life. But story is about facing fears, overcoming obstacles, and change. And that's what coaching is about. It's about finding out what you really want, and figuring out what's holding you back, overcoming those obstacles, and then coming out the other side somehow. And that's what story is. And actually, in my thrillers, my big theme is embrace the unknown, be willing for my characters and hopefully the reader, certainly me as a writer, to go up against what you're most afraid of or what is challenging you, and being able to push forward through that. And so I feel like there are so many parallels with the coaching. I really do.
That is really cool. It's so funny because it's not something I would naturally think of, and then you explain it, and it's like, oh, of course, it makes total sense.
It makes sense, and it wasn't until I was really doing the coaching that I realized how much I put my characters through, and how much I can learn from them, and how when I'm writing, really what I'm trying to do is have my readers, feel like they're triumphing over, their fears and their obstacles, and they're coming out. I mean, it's a story, it's entertaining, but I also hope that they walk away with a sense of, alongside the character, a sense of triumph, a sense of success, a sense of just that, that thrillers are fast paced, right? They're heart pounding. And that happens in life too, when things come up and you get excited about them, or things are scary and you don't know how to face them. So I really feel like after doing the coaching, it made so much sense, because it was a lot of what I was writing about and how I was approaching story.
Yeah, so absolutely. And I know that in your books, well, first of all, for the moment, you have taken a step back from writing, but I hope that at some point you'll be coming back to it. And we do have like a good, like you said, backlist of stuff that we can read and listen to. You also have audio, oh my God, Audible audio books, right?
Yes, I love audiobooks. They're like my go-to. And just they have been for years. I love reading too, but I do love audio. And yeah, I definitely, my nonfiction I've been working on, I really want to get that done, and I want to get that out in the world, only because I feel like this time in life with the pandemic and with everything, people being home and just mental health being a concern, just from people I've talked to and things I've read, it's truly is something that people are struggling with. I feel like if there's a little bit of I can put into the world that is of value in that way. But yeah, I absolutely, as you guys know, and as you've spoken to writers and as writers, we always have so many projects we started and paused or got, excited by the shiny new storyline. And so with that, I definitely have stuff. And every time I watch a show or read a book, I think about story, and I'm like so excited, but I have to prioritize. Otherwise I'm going to get myself into never ending cycle. So yeah, but definitely, absolutely. There'll be more for sure.
Thanks, David. Thank you for phonetically spelling my mess of word.
You can count on our listeners to help us out for sure.
Right.
It's a new word. Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
So you're a professional coach. It seems like you're very busy. You're a professional coach. And I also see you're a president of Sisters in Crime. And I asked Christy about this before we went on. I used to work in law enforcement. So I'm thinking, oh, that's pretty cool. And it still is after she explained what it is, but it was totally different than what I thought it was. So you want to explain what Sisters in Crime Central Jersey means?
Yeah, so I was former president of Sisters in Crime Central Jersey. It is a national, actually it's a global organization. It was started in the 1980s, I believe, as a spinoff from Mystery Writers of America. And it started as a way to get the voices of women into the crime fiction genre, because back then I think it wasn't as popular and it was harder. I think women were struggling getting contracts and agents. So it was a way to kind of get women to support women. And over the years it's evolved, and it really is more of like, we call it like siblings more than sisters, because it's gender neutral. So, all genders are obviously welcome, and anyone interested in crime writing. I love the organization because I feel like it's very specific to what a lot of us write when we're writing thriller, we're writing suspense, mystery, all different areas of crime fiction are included. And I know Christie has been a part of the organization too, and they had such wonderful training and education platforms, as well as webinars online. They help promote their authors, and certainly the smaller chapters getting together with people, like-minded writers, is so great, because you have people to bounce ideas off of. You have more experienced people, less experienced people who are indie published, who are traditionally published, who have agents, who don't have agents, and all different means. And it's such a great learning experience. And I encourage anyone who writes crime fiction, if you have a chapter that you can join locally, for sure, but absolutely the National Sisters in Crime organization for writing is excellent.
Totally agree with that, and exactly the reasons that you said. I really love, and they have managed to continue this even while we can't get together and
Aw.
stuff.
Yeah.
Stephanie.
Thank you. Love Stephanie.
She is a powerhouse. I don't know how you do it all,
Aw,
honestly.
writing is a crime. I love it. I love you got to love all of the comments. It's great.
So I was just going to ask, is we were talking just before you come on about going wide in Kindle Unlimited, and you write different genres. I see you're not just into thrillers. We'll get touch on that later. But Wanda Janaway, she says she's going, and I think that means 2 published, and she's going to do with Ingram Spark. So do you do? Are you wide, or are you Kindle Unlimited, or are you kind of hybrid?
So it's funny. I've tried everything. What I do now, my rule is when I first have a book out, like the first 90 days, I do the Kindle Unlimited. I go on to just Amazon, and then I go wide because I do ultimately think that, I primarily sell on Amazon and Audible. Actually, I do really well on Audible. I have 2 audiobooks out. But I think for me, I feel like any reader that wants to read my stories, I want to have my books accessible to them. And so I didn't, as much as Amazon is really is a mega center for writers and for readers, I also felt like it was important for me to branch out and just be able to, reach anybody who wanted to read my stories. But yes, in the beginning, I typically will go out the first 90 days of a new release on Amazon, and then I'll go wide. And I love audio. If I could do all my books in audio, I would. It's an awesome process. We can talk about that if you guys want, but it is time consuming and a lot of work as well. So you do have to put a lot of time in, but it definitely is worth it. I absolutely love listening. And I know, readers also like to listen to books. So it's a great platform for story.
So when you say you put a lot of time in, are you actually narrating your own audiobooks?
No, I don't. I find narrators that 2 narrators I've used are seasoned actors that have switched over to voiceover. They the one Lewis Arlt who did Among Us is actually an amazing director, writer, actor. He's an Emmy Award winner, and he's gotten himself into audiobooks now, and he's unbelievable. And then I also use Chris Shula, who works a lot with Audible, and he was part of my book Among Us was part of 2018 ACX University, which is the education platform for authors on Audible. And he was a part of that video. We made a video to teach authors about how to get your book narrated on Audible. And he was the author that was a part of that. And I've since used him. So they do that part, but there's a lot of work involved. We go through the editing process in a book as writers, but there's another editing process and proofreading process as an audiobook, because your book has to sound right. And even if something looks good on paper, and I know we read our books out loud, a lot of us read our books aloud and have others read it aloud. When you actually are going through the audiobook process, I've learned so much. And actually the narrators have helped me make my books better. I look at writing books a little differently now that I have audio, but for sure, word by word, every single written, like everything in your book from beginning to end needs to match the audio when it's done. So that takes a long time. But even before that, you're getting into, if you're not somebody who writes about character development in a very detailed way, like I tend to write notes and then I learn about my characters and I know who they are. And if you ask me a question, I could answer, but I don't have like a book written on them, right? But when you're trying to have a narrator portray a character in your book, you need to know all the answers and then you have to be able to explain that to them. So there's just a lot more in the process that's more formal, I think, than the creative way that we may write a book. When you're doing audio, you're bringing somebody else into that, and that other person you want them to encapsulate your characters the way you did when you wrote them. And so it's a very interactive process.
And I find that going through the audio edits, it actually, like you say, it cleans up of some stuff in your books that you never saw before through the editing process, and it actually catches a couple of those friggin' little nasty typos that just happen to get through all the time. But when I'm doing the audio and I'm listening along as he sends me the next chapter, I go, oh, that's spelled wrong. Or he'll point it out to me and say, hey, I think you're missing a word here.
Yes.
And so it actually cleans the book up quite nicely.
It cleans it up. And I also if I write with an audiobook in mind, I'm writing, I wouldn't say differently, but I think I write better because I'm really trying to have it come across as more of a movie in your mind and that's what we're always trying to do. But think it forces you, knowing it's going to be read aloud, that you need to have that motion picture aspect of it. And so every time I'm writing, I'm thinking, I have this Post-it I put, up on my desk that says, can you film it? And so every line that I go through, I do a check on, can you film it? Can you film it? And obviously not every single line in the book needs to be filmable, because there's going to be there are going to be things that are more told than shown, but for sure it helps and it makes a difference. And when you have that in mind, I think you just approach the writing and editing process a little differently. At least it helped me tremendously.
So Stephanie is asking, would you consider narrating your own books?
So I wouldn't narrate fiction, only because I'm not an actor, and I give such props to actors. And I know many authors have acting backgrounds, and so I think that would be awesome if they were able to do that. But I know for me, I don't know if it's a confidence thing or if it's just a flat out skill thing. I feel like it's really important to let the people that do the work really well do the work. So like me personally would not cut my own hair, because I could probably trim it. Like, I let somebody do that because they know what they're doing. I also trust the actors and directors of the book more than myself. Like, I want somebody else to volley with, but I will say that if there's a writer out there that gets, you want to get into voiceover, or you want to learn how to do voiceover, or you have an acting background, it is a great way to broaden your stream of income, for sure. The only time I think I would do that, it would be nonfiction. I have considered it. And with my nonfiction book that I'm writing right now, it's fairly short and it's material, obviously, I know really well and that I'm comfortable with. I still don't know if I would want to do it. I just want to make sure it's the best product it can be. And I feel like somebody else could do a better job. Maybe if I had some training and really worked on it. And it would be awesome to do a nonfiction yourself, because you're writing it and you're reading it and people connect with that. But yeah, I think I might leave that to the pros.
I can understand, but at the same time, if you ever did want to narrate it, there's something special, when you listen to a book that's read by the author. I can't remember the last book I listened to that was that way. The woman wasn't necessarily a great actress, but she had so much passion that it was almost an equivalent, and it was fun to listen to because you could just hear how excited she was, So, I mean, I'm sure you could do great nonfiction. I totally understand your hesitation with fiction, though. It's very intimidating for sure.
It is. And you know what? After having heard what the actors do, they're so brilliant. I love having somebody else bring my characters to life. It just feels like there's another level of just the interaction in the story, which I really enjoy. So yeah, I think for fiction, I would leave it, but for sure for nonfiction, it's definitely something for nonfiction I would dabble in. There's no doubt about that. I think I would try it. I don't know. Again, I'm really about leaving it to the pros. Like, I won't edit. I mean, nobody, I don't know. People may edit their own work. I wouldn't edit my own work. I mean, we self-edit, but we have editors for that. And Christie happens to be my awesome, amazing partner in that area. But for sure, I feel like, you need to know that you're really, really good at the story, really, really good at writing. And if you're willing to do the other pieces, go for it. I would rather do my little part.
So I was wondering, as Richard brought up, you do different genres. And your last one, Among Us, was sci-fi and thriller. And I wondered, at the end of that one, of course, I'm not going to give any spoilers, but you certainly left it open that you could, if you wanted to, write another, book that came after it. Is that something you think you'll do? / would you do another sci-fi book?
Yeah, I love sci-fi. Sci-fi is like one of my favorites. I just want to make sure whatever I'm doing it well, because it's such, for me, I respect all the genres, but I so am in awe of people who write really good sci-fi, and I know how complicated it can be. And so I want to make sure I would be able to do it justice but in this book in particular, Among Us, I did write the ending with a tie-up, but also an opening, because I had an idea in mind for future books along the lines of this, because I think this is definitely a story that could go on and on, because of the government conspiracy aspect, and there's so many things you could do with really any story, but for sure I was comfortable with this story moving on. I don't, it's funny. I don't always feel like that. Like there are stories I write where I'm like, I don't want to write it again. I loved it, but it's done. Like you just know when it's done. This one, I feel like could go on. I would just need to get in that frame of mind for sure. But yeah, I love sci-fi. Some of my short stories were also sci-fi.
So just going on that, I noticed you've got a box set out, and I thought it was very interesting that when I put box sets out, that's a trilogy. So they're all in the same universe, they're all in the same genre, they're all the same story actually. But I see that your box set actually has. So I had it written down here, and I must have just moved my screen. Oh, here it is. The box set Twisted includes Train Girl, which is new adult domestic thriller, the novel Again, which is a new adult paranormal, and the novel To Preserve, Protect, and Defend, which is a new adult science fiction. So the 3 different genres there.
Mm-hmm.
That's very interesting. I would never think of doing that, but so you're trying to give the reader a sense of the different genres that you write?
Yeah, I wanted it to be like the 3 short stories that when I first started writing professionally and I decided, okay, I'm going to try and do this. I love short stories, and I want to give the reader a taste of the type of stories they would get from me. And those stories are all, I know that the 3 are called Twist. It's in a box called Twisted. They're all a little twisty. They're very twisty and turny and surprise endings, I believe, for all 3. And so that was kind of what the theme was. It was in that sense, they're very similar. But yes, I wanted, if somebody wasn't sure if they wanted to read my work or they didn't know if I was for them, reading something like that, they would get a taste of what they're going to get. And it's in different genres within thriller, for sure.
Yeah, I find that very interesting. I don't think I've ever seen that before.
Like a sampler.
I didn't realize I was doing anything cool. It's just like, in my mind, I'm like, they're all short, they're all twisty and turny with, kind of shocking surprise endings. And I know how I love, I don't like writing the same thing all the time. Like I'm not one of those writers. I get bored with my own writing. Like I want to change it up. I see like a new topic and I'm like, I want to explore that. So I felt like this was, a little sampler. That's a great way to put it. I never thought of that before. Need you guys for my marketing too, right?
The word new adult. New adult. What is that exactly as new adult? I can probably figure it out, but I don't think I've ever seen new adult. I see young adult.
Yeah, so it's funny. I don't know exactly when it emerged as a genre, and it's it came out. I feel like, it definitely was right around when I started writing, about 10 or so years ago. It started to become popular, but it's the protagonist's age is between 18 and they say 30, but really it's like 25, the protagonist. And it's all about new first experiences, high drama challenges, but really around the protagonist living their life as a new adult, like the first of whatever, your job, your first home, your relationship, your first out of college, experience, or maybe you're in college if you're writing. I write on the higher end, not the lower end of that. So I write in the like higher 20s age range. But it's funny because I started out as adult, but I felt like some people were like the storylines and things that were happening in my book when I first started writing, people were giving me feedback that it was more like young adult, but not so young. And I'm like, well, there's a new adult genre. Let me check that. And I really went back through all my books and I don't know if it was marketing as much as it was classified them, because I realized what I was writing in retrospect. And I realized that that's what I gravitate toward. I gravitate toward writing stories about that time in life that is so experiential, like everything's new and first time you're experiencing it, and you don't have anything, kind of like what we're going through with the pandemic, quite honestly. You don't have anything to draw from. So when you don't have any experiences to draw from and to use as from a psychology standpoint, which is where I love, my psychology background, because I'm always thinking like that when I'm writing, but you don't have any experiences or coping skills. And so you're finding things that are similar and trying to figure it out, but it's not quite the same. And I think we've all learned what that looks like the last year, right? And how hard that is and what a toll that takes and how everything is such a big deal because it's something so new, your brain does not know what to do with it. And that's kind of where I go in these stories. Like I push my characters to the challenge of something so like difficult for them. And it's their first experience that it's a little bit more of that drama that I like to write about.
Definitely like an extra level, on top
Yeah.
of what you would normally have anyway, which is pretty cool.
Right.
So I also know that not all of your books, but some of your books do take place in New Jersey, which is where you live. And so I was wondering, when you're writing them, like a lot of times you're naming specific areas, specific places. And I wondered, like, what makes you decide where you're going to place a book, whether you're going to place it in a place that or maybe you've been in a lot of, different places wherever you've set these different books, but specifically where you live, how do you decide what you're going to publish where you live?
Yeah,
that came out awful.
That's a good question, because
that's editing's for Christie.
Yeah. I was so careful when I first started writing, just getting feedback about be very careful about, names and brands and things. So, but I really know I've lived here all my life. I live at the Jersey Shore. I live in Monmouth County. I grew up here. I went to school here. I live here now. I love it. There's something very unique about it. It has the flair of, the New York City vibe right across the way, but we're right by the beach. So it's got a very, laid back at the beach. But then you also have, it's a tourist attraction, right? So people come from all over. So I like to play that up. So all of my stories are primarily set at the Jersey Shore. What I end up doing is I change the names, and I also mix towns. So like I'll take a little bit, I live in Eatontown, which is on the border of Tinton Falls and Shrewsbury, if anybody's familiar with New Jersey. I mix in Red Bank. I mix in all the surrounding area, Tinton Falls, Shrewsbury, like Ocean Township. I'll mix in, like Fairhaven, Little Silver, Rumson, all those different things. I'll take pieces of the towns that I like, and I'll make a town in my mind, and that's how I put them together. And so there's no one place. Some places that show up in my books, actually the one I'm writing now, Unleash the Wicked, which is my new adult thriller that I'm still working on with, surprise, long story, short story, surprise pregnancy. I was like, oh, I got to put everything on hold now. And now I have a baby. So, but with that, places will show up that I absolutely love, and I change the name, but the vibe is the same. So if you're from the area and you've been to these places, you'll know right away. But if you're not, you wouldn't. So I try to do a little bit of that. So there's a little bit of mystery in there, but I know what they are. And so this is special to me, and I can get it right. And I might change a couple of things, but for the most part, it feels like home to me. So when I'm writing these books, I feel like I'm home. Like it's a comfort thing for me, and it helps me be more authentic, and get more involved in the story on a deeper level. And I'm not as concerned about this fiction world that I'm building, because even though I am building it, there's a lot of familiarity among us. Same thing. I based her, the main character's home, not itself, but like where she lived, based on, where I live and what it feels like. And also the local university where she teaches was a school that I'm familiar with. And so I did those kinds of things. It's not exactly the same, but it's enough that I feel like I'm able to get deeper with the story for that.
Yeah, for sure. Just to change focus here, I see too that you are represented by something called creative edge publicity, and I find as an independent author, it's very hard to find someone who's actually good at doing something like that. Other than someone mom and pop place that they mean well, but they don't actually do anything for you. But did they find you, or did you find them, and how do you find the experience with them so far?
It's funny. They found me. It was through like a mutual contact, I feel like through Sisters in Crime, that they actually reached out to me because one of their clients would be a good speaker when I was president. And I was helpful and everything. And then, through that connection, we decided to enter into a relationship together. I never would have considered it, but I'm really, really bad at marketing and promotion, like so bad. Part of it is a time thing. The other part of it is like I'm just terrible at promoting myself. It's not something I'm comfortable with. So I'm really bad at it. And I'm terrible about it in person as well as online. I'm in social media barely these days, but when I am, it's to hang out and connect, and I'm not really good at promotion. So anyway, their job was less about what I'm having a great experience, to answer your question, but the job I found that it was, and I don't know if all publicists are this way, was more about connecting you with the right people for you and what you're doing versus just throwing your name out there. So everything that I'm offered or anything that I have an opportunity to do, there is a symbiotic relationship between me and that other person to make sure that it works. Like it's the right podcaster that, I, connect with, or like, I like their platform or the other authors they've interviewed, those kinds of things. So I felt like it was more important to do that than just kind of blast my name, because who cares? There's a million names out there, right? And everybody's writing a book. So I wanted to make sure when I connected with people that it was real and we had something in common or something to talk about, or something that we served each other well. We were able to add value. And that's the relationship I have with Creative Edge. I feel like they look for that, and that's what they want. They're very good about connecting people with the right people, and he cares very much about his clients in terms of being picky with who he has and who they are. So with that being said, I'm sure there's a million publicists, companies out there willing to help authors. And I think for an author, if it's something that you think will be helpful, I would recommend, doing a little bit of research and seeing what might work for you. I have to tell you, the things that I have done as a result, I would never have been able to do on my own, because I don't have the connections. And quite honestly, that's not my personality. I'm a hustler in other ways. Like, I work really hard when I'm doing something, but I'm not a hustler for like business. Like, that's not my personality, isn't to try to sell something or get business. Like, I'm really bad at that. So if I have somebody helping me with that, I'm very grateful. And that, I think, is what I needed. Not everybody needs that, but that's a lot of work to me. And to build those relationships and connections over time is a lot of work. So for some authors, I've seen so many authors that are so awesome at this, and I'm so envious, and it's just I'm not. And I know my weaknesses, and I accept them, and I'm okay with it. So I would rather have somebody help.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. That makes total sense.
Yeah.
So I know that we are, close to out of time. I do want to make sure that we cover something that you talk about a lot, which is work-life balance. And you've been super outspoken about it. If anybody here happens to be subscribed to your newsletter, then they know that that's something that you always talk about, and if you aren't subscribed to Kristina's newsletter, she does cover those kinds of life topics that can be really tricky for all of us. So I know that, like, one of the steps you've taken to create a work-life balance is taking a step back, as you just mentioned, from social media and things like that. So, like, tell us about how you kind of made that decision, and just about your advice for work-life balance.
Yeah, it's really hard, and there's no one answer for any person. I think you've got to figure out for yourself what works. There have been times in my life where my balance was working 24/7. Like, I was a workaholic for many years, and that's how I got through life. And it was because I was going through some stuff through just grieving when my mom had passed, and that helped me. And I feel like the pandemic opened my eyes in a different way. It made me realize how grateful I was to be healthy, to have a roof over my head, to have a beautiful daughter, to have a family. And that doesn't mean that everything was perfect, because absolutely not. But I really wanted to take time to appreciate that those people and things that were important in my life, knowing that what was facing, everybody was facing health crisis. I mean, I could have gone out the next day and gotten sick and been on a ventilator. I know a lot of people that was the case for them. So it just kind of opened my eyes. And so, yes, in my newsletter, every other week, I send a little inspirational note out about whatever is going on, and my goal isn't to talk about me as much. It is to use my experience to maybe help somebody through something. And it's always kind of giving a little pep talk to the person on the other side about, and some ideas, some steps you can take. But for sure, work-life balance for me now looks like doing what I have to do to get by and get the day done. I'll make sure everything gets done, all my responsibilities. But priority number one is taking time for myself to make sure that I'm able to be the person I need to be at work, in writing, with my husband, with my daughter, with anybody on social media. If I go on social media, I'm present and I'm sharing something of value. Same thing with my newsletters. If I'm writing something, it means something to me. I think when I started out in this business, I was doing a lot of like just throwing it out there and seeing what hit. I don't know if anyone's tried this method. I just was like, oh, let's do this. And I did everything. And now I'm very careful. I'm selective. I pick and choose what I do. And, you know, I'm very, because my time is precious and everybody else's time is precious. And as you can see, my time went out the window tonight because I didn't know. I was like, wait, my time totally was messed up tonight. But it is true. Like, you do have to pick and choose the projects that you do and the things that you do to take care of yourself. And the most important thing is knowing that you are the most important person in your life. You have to take care of yourself is number one. And that's how you're gonna be able to take care of other people. If you're, oh, I'm one of those caretaker types and helper types, and sometimes to a fault people pleaser types. And I've learned that that has not served me or anyone well. So now my priority is take care of me, make sure I'm healthy and in a good place mentally and physically, and then I can take care of everybody else. Otherwise, I'm just going to be depleted and I'm good for nothing. Not good for writing, not good for working, not good for anyone. And so that is so important, whatever it means, if it's working out, if it's writing, if it's sleeping, if it's going for a walk, you know, talking to a friend, whatever you need to do for you, take care of yourself because it is really important. And then you will be better to everybody in your life. And all your work will be better as well. So that's number one. So for some people, it's 40-hour work week. Some it's 5, some it's 100, like whatever works for you.
Fantastic advice. And I feel like it's one of those things that everyone wants to hear, but it's hard. It's not always the easiest to find. You know, we often feel like we need to overwork to be of value. But as you're saying, you can't even, you know, if you're not taking good care of yourself. So I think it's such good advice.
No, it's true. You'll produce, but what are you producing? And even if you are really good at producing, like when I was super busy working 24/7, I was producing books like left and right, and I was they weren't bad. I was happy with them, but I burnt out. And there's a price to pay. So I think that's, you know, and it's not a negative thing. It's just the reality of life. There is a price to pay. You are going to sacrifice something. I went through years of sacrificing relationships for writing. And, you know, there are some of that time that I do regret. But now I know the most important thing is taking care of myself and the people in my life, and that everything else is next in line. And if that means I don't get a book written as quickly, that's okay. If it means that I don't sell as many books because I didn't do as much promotion, that's okay with me. That's my standard because I've been there. I've done the 24/7 workaholic and it doesn't work for me. So I think you just have to know yourself and what you need and what you're going through in life and what's going to serve you, and do that.
Yeah, that's for sure. That's great advice. You know, if you don't take care of yourself, then you're useless to everyone else around you. So, you know,
easier said than done, like everything.
For sure. So just before we close, do you have any exciting news coming up with regards to new books releasing or new books in the works that are going to be coming out maybe in the spring of 2021?
So my latest that I'm working on, I mentioned Unleash the Wicked, which is my fiction book, which is a new adult paranormal thriller, will be after this book that I'm writing now, which is called Be Happy Now. And it's a book on happiness. And I'm currently enrolled in a certificate in happiness studies, which is really about well-being. And it kind of piggybacks on my coaching certification. And so I want to take like the top 5 things that resonated with me and share them and give it, you know, not talk about experiences and examples, but it'll be like a little workbook as well for people. It will absolutely go to my newsletter group first, free, and then I'll put it out in the world. But I want my people that follow me and my newsletter and stay with me through all the times that we've been through to get that book. So when that is ready, anybody who's on my newsletter email list will get that book. And that's my value add, I feel like, giving into the world right now, what we're all going through. And then, Unleash the Wicked will be my thriller. That'll come next, but I got to get the happy out first. Happy's got to come first.
So there's no set deadline. It's just
there isn't yet. I'm telling Christie, poor Christie, I'm almost done. I'm hoping by summer, because this summer I literally want to spend on the beach, like June through August. So I just want to do nothing but sit.
Sounds like a good summer.
So I need it to be out and done by June, because I need to be sitting doing no work all summer long. That's my goal.
Sounds good. Well, we wish you luck. So thank you very much for joining us, Kristina. And
Thank
we
you
really
so
have you
much.
on here and learning all about what you do. And please get in touch with us when something new comes out. And so next week, on Tuesday, April 2nd, we're going to be joined by Judith Mccully, Mclaughlin. And this is really switching it up for all the shows we've done so far. Just because of myself being a fantasy writer, we've had a lot of fantasy authors too. And now we have a thriller writer this week, which is awesome. We switched it up. And next week, Judith is the author of a romance, which is probably the biggest genre out there. So hopefully that'll tickle people's fancies. But Judith is the author of a romance, women's fiction, middle grade, chapter books, and poetry. So it'd be interesting to hear what Judith has to say.
She's amazing. You'll love her.
Okay, awesome. So thank you again, Kristina, for being here. Thank you, Christy, for being such an awesome co-host. So until next Tuesday, please stay safe.